Just in terms of how we're going to, how this session is going to run, very quick introductions from myself and about Crimson. We're going to touch then on the challenges in complaint handling, which I'm sure many of you will be familiar with. And then we're going to go into a demonstration, because I think the word AI has been bandied around quite a lot within our sector. But also people are asking me the question, I kind of understand it, but I sort of want to see it. So hopefully today we'll be able to give you some examples of where you can actually see AI working within the complaints process, which will hopefully give you some ideas to take away. So just as a way of introduction, so my name's Ciara McMillan. I'm the account director at Crimson and responsible for looking after our housing customers and also where we go in terms of technology and some of the solutions to try and solve some of the challenges that we have currently within housing. My colleague Ollie, I'll let you say hello.
Hi guys, yeah, I'm Ollie Sinclair, the CTO here at Crimson. I'm a seasoned technical advisor. I like that. Okay, that's cool. Yeah, I've been working with BizApps for quite a number of years, and really, yeah, here to give you guys a bit of a demo on where we think AI is going to be going with complaints.
Excellent, thank you. So just for those that don't know, and might be saying, well, who is Crimson? So just very, very briefly. So Crimson, we are part of the Nash Squared group. So as you can see, some information on the screen there about Nash Squared. But in theory, at a high level, we bring technology and talent together. So many of you will know Nash Squared and Harvey Nash as maybe a recruitment organisation. Crimson, as part of that group, though, is very much a digital transformation partner. And our main drive is really to work with organisations, and specifically today with housing associations, which is one of our very invested sectors, to really understand some of the business challenges. So taking technology away, really focusing on what some of the challenges, what are the things that you're trying to deliver and the outcomes you're trying to achieve for your organisation and your customers, but then to apply the technology that may be able to help you do that, which today we're very much focusing on complaints, but across all of the housing associations tasks and processes and delivery, we are there to really understand those challenges, and we then underline the technology that may help you. And for some of that, it may be that you've already got technology in place, but you just need to get some more value from it, or it may be that you're new to the technology. And when I say technology, just pointing out there, we are a Microsoft, what used to be called a gold partner, now is a accredited solutions partner. But all of the technology and the solutions that we work with are from the Microsoft stack. So many of you will have investment within some of the Microsoft technologies. Some of you might be thinking about what can they offer, but for whichever way that you are, from a Crimson perspective, we are accredited and well known within the Microsoft partner space for working with housing associations. So hopefully that's given you a little bit of a flavour. I wanted to do that quite quickly and move on to really today. So today we've really focused on AI and how that can be used to support the complaints process, make it more efficient, hopefully provide better outcomes for your customers and also your colleagues who are managing and handling these complaints. So I'm just going to touch on a couple of points really, which I'm sure all of you know exceptionally well, but as we know, the new complaint handling code did bring out some differences and some areas of us to consider in terms of how we handle and manage complaints. Just picking out here, what is a complaint? As we know from the Ombudsman, it is an expression of dissatisfaction. It doesn't need to use the word complaint. And I'm picking out some of these points because as we move into the demo a little bit later on, hopefully we'll be able to show you some of the tools that can help you with some of this new process that's coming out of the complaints handling code. So we know that there's dissatisfaction of service, people not feeling happy with something, they don't have to use the word complaint, and that we must give them, as landlords, we must give them the choice to be able to make a complaint. We also know what the complaint stages are. So I know organisations have had many different complaints processes and stages over the time, but we know from the code that there are those 2 stages. And again, although I know organisations work within these timelines or have certainly aimed to work within these timelines, we have now seen some clear guidance in the code that gives us how many days that we need to be working and receiving a complaint, and by how many days we need to get a full response back. And again, the same for part 2 or stage 2. And quite interestingly, in terms of stage 2, it must be dealt with by somebody different. So thinking within our organisations, and quite often when complaints come in, they involve lots of different areas. There's lots of things maybe within that phone call or that email. We have got some really key guidance here in terms of the process and the time in which we need to respond. So we know that making that process of how we handle that time from when the complaint comes in to when we need to get a response and a resolution to a customer is really, really precious. And it's trying to work within that to see where we can make that as efficient as possible. So again, you will probably all know this, I'm sure, but just sort of setting a little bit of context. If we look at what some of the Ombudsman's reports have said, and especially in the latest report around the knowledge information management, over 88% of landlords and the colleagues that are working within our organisations handling complaints have said that poor information has been a key to them having challenges in trying to respond to a complaint. And that might not necessarily be that we don't have the information, but quite often it's because it's in lots of different places. We also know the themes of the complaints. Again, no surprise to anybody, but as the data is telling us from the Ombudsman, things like poor communication is a key reason why customers are complaining. So again, back to what we're looking at today, how can AI help within that handling process to really improve communication? Vulnerabilities is something that has been highlighted across the regulator and the Ombudsman about how we understand our customers' vulnerabilities. And it's a really difficult conversation because we're in the hands of our customers telling us if there are concerns within the house or there are vulnerabilities or needs that we need to take into account when we are dealing with them. And quite often we don't find that out until a complaint has come in. So we have a big piece of work to gain the trust of our customers to be able to share information with us, but to know that it's stored in a place that is sensitive and secure, and that it's going to be used in the right way, so that we're actually going to use it to be able to change or amend, enhance a service to be able to meet some of their needs. Repairs is always probably the top of complaints, and I think everybody would be nodding and agreeing. But quite often that is linked back to communication. And certainly from speaking to a number of people that are handling complaints, when it comes to that point of actually trying to handle that complaint, it's having to go into lots of different places, speak to lots of different people to try and find that data to be able to make a decision on what the resolution is going to be around that complaint. So what I've done here is just summarised really some of those things that I've just really talked about. Again, we're seeing that, you know, people in our organisations are saying that the information, or as the Ombudsman says, the databases aren't synchronising. But actually we do have the data and they might not be synchronizing, but how can we use some of these new tools to be able to bring together the information that we need to be able to resolve that complaint? Some of the challenges that we're facing are listening and capturing that information. And as I said previously, quite often complaints come in that are quite complex, that have lots of different facets to them, have lots of different parts and lots of issues. How can we almost summarise that and make sure that we've got the real key issues that are about a complaint that we're able to prioritise and deal with? And what are maybe some of the support areas in there where we need to look upon some of the other services that we may offer? A real piece of learning is about understanding some of the repeat complaints and where are we able to take learnings from those, because again, it's really important that we're learning from how we resolve complaints so that we can get better on resolving those complaints. Examples being on letters that are written to customers. We have similar complaints. If we have a similar style of approach, ensuring that we've met vulnerabilities and different understandings of that customer, it will help us to get learnings and to be able to try and improve going forward as an onwards continuous improvement of how we handle complaints. One of the other challenges, though, which is one that I've heard time and time again, is when a customer has gone to the Ombudsman and the Ombudsman is asking us about the complaint, it is quite an effort to pull together all of the different stages, all of the communication, everything that we may have done in that complaint to be able to evidence back to the Ombudsman that we followed our process, that we are compliant with the process, but that we've also gone above and beyond and we've actually addressed all of those issues. And I know that can be quite a hefty piece of work. And as we know at the moment, there is an increase in complaints with the Ombudsman. So again, looking at the tools and the technology that's there to try and help with not just that complaint part within our organisation, but when we are getting those Ombudsman challenges back. So hopefully that's given a bit of a flavour, which I know everybody on this call will know. You're all working with or involved with complaints, I'm sure. So what we wanted to move on to is we've identified some of those challenges there, but what we wanted to then look at is what is some of the technology within the Microsoft platform that is there to maybe help and support some of this process and try and enhance it and make it more efficient. You will have heard things like Copilot. We've talking about AI Builder, AI being the topic, driven insights, Copilot Studio, automation, all different kind of tools there, and we are going to go through these and show you them, which is the purpose of today. But there'll be some of the sort of words that you might have heard from maybe your tech teams, or you're certainly hearing from partners like ourselves that potentially can help you. And what's really key is some of these tools you'll already have within your architecture in your organisation. So it's how can you get better value from them. So just before we go into Ollie, who I've challenged and said, I can read all this to people, but they really want to see it. Copilot has been talked about under the AI banner for quite a while. And just some very, very quick sort of ideas. Real-time assistance, so really helping those customer service people where they're on the call to people that might have an issue or complaining. How can they use some of this sort of real-time assistance to find answers to what they're trying to give to the customer in a real quick way? Conversation summaries is one of my favorite, and again, it's where we can have we can record calls, we can go into transcripts, but actually what we need is just that summary of what's actually been said. If we take an email, that summary of what's there, so that we can very quickly be able to understand what has happened maybe in the past with this customer when we're looking through all of the events and all of the interactions that they may have had with us. AI Builder, natural language processing. I'll leave some of the techie talk to techie people. But the bit that really captures me is if we go back to the Ombudsman saying a customer doesn't need to use the word complaint. So how are we to really understand whether a customer wants to complain, is complaining, whether they're happy or not happy? And sentiment analysis, one of the AI tools, is a really sort of automatic way, whether that's off a summary, whether it's off an email or maybe a WhatsApp interaction, able to give you very real time that sort of analysis on this person's not particularly very happy, the sentiment of what they're trying to say is not particularly very happy, can give you a bit of an indicator as to where and potentially how you address that. And also on the positive side, because we do a lot of good work. We're focusing on complaints today, but there is an awful lot of good work that we do. So again, looking at some of that really good customer feedback that comes in where people are really, really happy with a service or an interaction that they've had. Text classification. So again, when we're having in lots of emails and lots of conversations and lots of things coming in, being able to categorize them very quickly is often a manual task. There's been I've spoke to organizations where they still are manually reading through emails, looking at whether this is a complaint that goes off that way, and allocating things quite manually. So how can we use AI to make that task a little bit quicker? I'm sure Ollie will tell us later. AI driven insights. So we are a sector that is very, very data rich, but probably insight poor. So we have a lot of data. We have a lot of information about past repairs, about the people in our homes, about the rent arrears, about the behaviours, but actually using that to be able to be more proactive and try to look at how we can proactively almost stop these complaints happening. Whilst we accept complaints are a great way of learning and continuous improvement, what we want to try and do is avoid the repetitive complaints where we're doing the same thing because we've not maybe made learnings. But to actually understand as well, as we do, you know, we've been quite common to talk about predictive rent arrears, understanding who are those customers that are most likely to go into rent arrears. Well, actually, using some of the predictive analytics, it's about understanding who's most likely to be unhappy, to maybe want to make a complaint. And what can we do about that sooner rather than waiting for them to actually have to make that complaint? Automation is probably one of the biggest areas where I know lots of housing associations are looking at. How can we get rid of those repetitive tasks, those manual tasks, and how can we automate things? Automation is key for being able to release some of that valuable time so people can work with customers that are maybe more complex or indeed have more vulnerabilities and need a little bit extra support. How can we make sure that the resource time is not being spent dealing with acknowledging emails, allocating work out, looking at logging things, finding things? How can we use the tools to help us there so that we can release the time back into the teams to really work with our customers? And business process flows. One of the key things is around consistency with complaints. We know we've got the code of conduct. We know we've got consumer standards and the regulation, but we also want consistency so that all of our customers are dealt with in a very consistent manner, and that we're able to evidence that if there was ever a challenge of how we have worked with our customers through a complaints in this instance, but indeed across any sort of process that we do. So things like the business process flows are really key to being able to do that. And just lastly, coming on to things like dynamics and customer service, which is a CRM, and some of you on the call may be using that. Some of you may be thinking about it, or you might have other CRM solutions. What's really key around AI and some of the AI tools is this isn't about having to have a particular system. It's about how these tools can work together with systems that you may already have. And I think that's quite a sort of a valid point, really, that it's not that you have to have dynamics or you have to have something. It's about how the tools can often bring together some of these systems to be able to provide the information that you need throughout a complaints process. So hopefully that's given you just a little bit of context around what some of the challenges are, which I'm absolutely certain you're well aware of, but also the challenges that we've taken and have brought into the session today, where we've looked at some of the AI tools, and then we're actually going to show it you. So what the demo is doing today, and it's something that, you know, again, from feedback from people, was let's just have a look at a kind of traditional complaints process. Now, some of you might look at that and go, well, that's what we do now, or that's what we'd like to get to, or we don't do anything like that. But it's just to give an example of what's a kind of maybe typical complaints process. And then what we want to do is then take you through what an AI embedded process could look like. So what we've done is we've taken some of those tools that I've mentioned there and actually embedded them into the process so that hopefully it brings it to life a little bit for you, so that you can actually see where there are some key areas where AI embedded within a process could be really valuable to your organisation. So I'm going to stop talking, which you might be all pleased about. I'm going to hand over to Ollie, who is going to take us through this demo. And if you've got any questions, I think, Ollie, we're happy if people want to raise their hand, if to want to speak out. I will keep an eye on the chat throughout this. but do feel free if there is anything that you want to ask at this point. We will put a bit of time at the end for Q&A if there is any, and of course if you go away and think of anything or want to come back to us, then obviously please do. So Ollie, I'll stop sharing and hand over to you.
Brilliant, thank you, Ciara. Yeah, okay, so really I want to get started as what Ciara's alluded to is, funnily enough, I've got a recording of what we did in our sort of housing webinars a couple of years ago, which is still, in my opinion, is a baseline of a very good complaints process that utilizes the tools and technologies of the Power Platform Dynamics 365. So I'm going to run through that now. As a recording, to sort of narrate up my way through. But this really is, this is a portal. You can have a portal, a Power Pages portal associated to your solution, where somebody can log in. They can use a chat bot to go and communicate with a virtual agent or with an actual an agent. But what they can also do is on that portal, they can actually submit a complaint. Now that's really good. You can start to categorize some of this stuff. You can give some details, and you can be able to sort of offer them a self-service approach to complaints management, which what I know is really key for quite a few people to have that channel shift. So that portal is still valid. It's still up and running. It still works. Okay, so once we've got maybe some capture, maybe it's a telephone call, it's an email, or it's from a web submission, a case is created that actually shows a little bit more information about what's going on. Now, this is where Dynamics really comes into its own in terms of being able to link to things like tenancies, to link to the unit or the location, and to link to the customer. And that business process bar at the top is absolutely key to understanding whereabouts you are in the process. Now, you can step through these, and we're sort of showing you here where manually you would step through these elements and start to collate and capture data and utilize the system. Don't get me wrong, it's you can absolutely automate this, and I'll show a little bit around some automation a little bit later on. But being able to capture a complaint in a consistent way, not on a spreadsheet, not in in an unstructured manner, is absolutely critical for that foundation element of making sure that you've got your complaints management sorted. It's be able to reference and be able to view all of these different complaints in the same way, to be able to do some analysis, but also just have that consistency with your customer. Yes, you can start populating details here. You can push this process bar. We're on stage 1 at the moment. We're looking at, doing some responses, setting a response date, and pushing these elements on. So really using a model-driven app and using the toolkit that Dynamics has out the box. You also obviously have activities. You can see activities there that relate to certain things, but you can also start pushing from one stage to another if you do get some responses back in an email. Again, this is non-AI, so you would have an agent looking at over emails, looking and monitoring and managing their complaints process with these records, pushing it onto the second stage, looking at potential ombudsman's referrals, looking at when the responses are due. So we've got SLAs associated to this process. So there's lots of things foundationally that we can do very, very well to actually make sure that there's a good structure around complaints management. And ultimately, what you're trying to get to is capturing enough information and driving these cases forward so that you can get to a good resolution or an acceptable resolution. Unfortunately, you can collaborate with other people, but in terms of trying to get, if you've never dealt with this type of complaint before, you may not have the knowledge from yourself about the best way of resolving it. And there isn't an easy way without AI to actually have a look at some of those resolutions and try and match the resolution options to what's happening within this case. So there's a couple of things that that we're doing manually here. We're collaborating with our team members using the Teams add-on into Dynamics, which is really, really useful. And ultimately, you can actually start to resolve that complaint, and again process the resolution, process the outcome, record any any elements that you would be doing for maybe some compensation. And yes, there's elements of reporting into this. So yeah, we've got a Power BI related to this that shows the complaints, and it shows some values and some volumes that we would look at. Really good, very quick whistle stop tour. I'm totally aware of that, because I want to spend a lot of my time just sort of sprinkling the AI and efficiency onto that process. But that's a very quick summary of, okay, well, what can Dynamics do? What can the Power Platform do in terms of really structuring how we can create cases, how we can manage complaints, how we can capture the information and process that through the stages, and having those SLAs there to give us a bit of a nudge in the right way. So I'm just going to close that down now. So, okay, new world. We're into a slightly more AI-enabled process. And one of the first things I want to talk through you guys is, I guess, two concepts of Copilot. We have a Copilot that pretty much is out of the box. I kind of call it the Copilot Assistant. So Assistant is really giving you the ability to prompt and ask some questions. It will give you generate and give you some answers back based on your data. It's relatively straightforward, but it does give you some really good information. So one of the questions we could do here is, I've got a lot of active cases open, and they're different priorities. So I might ask a simple question like, okay, are there any trends in the high priority cases? So I'm going to ask AI to give me some analysis on some of the case information that you can see, and try and work through maybe picking out a few key cases or picking out some trends. And it says I've got 18 high priority cases, some notable cases there, and I'm looking down the list and I can actually navigate to those cases. So using Copilot as your assistant to say, what's going on? Where are my high priority cases? Are there any trends I need to be aware of? Is there anything that we need to be worried about? So that's really useful from an AI assistance perspective. Same principle really when we're looking at when we're going to the detail of maybe some complaints, because in the process a case converts to a complaint. I'm actually sat there thinking, okay, well, I'm actually really looking at trying to find out what I want to do next. So I'm actually going to say, okay, well, what would be the next complaint to work on based on dates? Where do I need to go? Tell me where to go. Tell me where to start. What should I be looking at? So again, what this is going to do is going to have a look, and I've given it a prompt to say, look, date's probably quite important. I want to have a look, and where do I need to focus my attention? And it says, well, I've got one complaint that I really should be working on next is around a boiler that's not been worked on for 2 months. Crikey, that's nuts. What is going on? We've got to have a look at that. We can go in and actually jump in and have a look at that. So from an AI assistance perspective, even if you've just got your core case management and your core complaints process running, without any AI, you can actually enable Dynamics 365 Customer Service Copilot and actually start using that as a very basic assistant to allow you to focus some of your areas and focus some of your work. That's great, but we want more. We want a little bit more. So that's absolutely one area. One of the really key elements that we see that is useful is around data capture coming in. Now, data is going to be captured from all different areas. It can be emails, it can be phone calls, it can be WhatsApp messages, it can be submissions from the web. Now, some of those channels allow the customer to provide some information, maybe around categories and maybe around subcategories of what the issue is, what the complaint may be. But some are just for example, email is one of those areas where you're just going to get a massive email potentially with a load of text that is complaining about certain things, giving a narrative, giving the history, quite emotive, but it can be like a big, long drawn out email. And how can AI be utilized to actually maybe sentiment analysis, do some sentiment analysis on the text that's coming in, but also categorize that email so we can understand that, yes, it is a complaint, a strong match that is a complaint, but also the subcategories. So what is the complaint about? What are we talking about? Talking about a repair? We're talking about a previous ASB? What is it that we're trying to go to? Now, this is one of the fundamental components, one of my favorite components of Power Automate, which is AI Builder. So Ciara mentioned that slightly earlier. Now, AI Builder really is smart for two reasons. The first reason is you actually can create what's known as a custom prompt. Now, this is where you can actually by creating a custom prompt, it gives you the freedom to instruct a GPT, a large language model, to behave in a certain way to perform a specific task. Now, that task might well be, like I've got here, email categorization. So as you can see here, this is written in natural language. So I've written this to say, look, I want you to classify the input text, which is, the email text. It could be a WhatsApp text. It could be the text from a website query, but based on the following categories. And I've got a list of my categories and my subcategories that I will reference. And what I'm asking it to do is analyze the key themes of that context, and then try to put the most appropriate primary and subcategory to that input text, or to that email, so that I can be proactive in terms of, yes, I can understand an email's coming in without anybody looking at it. I can see that it is a complaint and that there is a certain category that's associated to that. Now, don't get me wrong, this is an absolute art form. Prompt engineering is one of those things that we will constantly be learning as large language models changes. But as you can see, this is written out in plain language. So if, for example, we could use this as a template going forward, maybe the classification between complaint and issue might be slightly different for your organization. We could change those wordings to actually be appropriate for what you guys want to be categorizing and subcategorizing your information on. So really, really useful is custom prompts within AI Builder. So when an email comes in, I can trigger this prompt to actually run and execute on that text. I can also, out of the box, have a look at AI sentiment analysis as well. So it's using the same text, tell me whether it's a smiley face or not so smiley face. We can actually do some sentiment analysis on that. So the combination of working out, what is the context of that email, what are the categories and subcategories, and what's the sentiment analysis, gives us really good ammunition to actually focus and route and prioritize these emails coming in and creating those complaints faster and being slightly more proactive in what we're doing. So as I said, looking on here, I've got my categorized emails at the moment, and I've got a couple in here around, strong matching around complaints. I've got some possibles and some strong matches around some subcategories as well. Sometimes it's not clear, this isn't it's not going to absolutely tackle every email and give you 100%, but it gets you in the right area for a lot of what you're trying to look at. So what would happen after this point? Let's look at a specific email. Move that out of the way. So as I said, a good example of a really long email. There's something that's going on with a faulty boiler. There's something going on. There's some emotional ordeal. Really saddens me. There's a lot of stuff going on in here that we would want to analyze. And what we've actually done is, because we know it's a complaint, because we know it's around a faulty boiler, we've automatically created a case that relates to the faulty boiler. So if we go into this scenario, you can actually see, rather than in the original journey, you just have a case where we're populating some information. What you can actually see here now is, again, back to what Ciara was talking about slightly earlier. AI is really, really good at summarization. It's really, really good at grabbing a load of information, summarizing that in the right way. So I've actually got a summary of what's gone on. And it's a bit of a Blue Peter moment, to be honest. This case has been open a little bit longer than just that email. But what we can see is that Alison Dickinson has submitted a complaint about a faulty boiler. There's concerns around financial burdens. There's lots of things going on. And as you can see, you've got some highlights around. There's a detailed complaint that's submitted, and the customers also expressed dissatisfaction. So we're in a bit of a pickle with Alison at the moment. And one of the things that we can do immediately is, still using what I classify as the Copilot assistant world, is actually, let's quickly go and create an email And using Copilot, we can actually draft an email that has the context of the previous email, that case, the information about Alison, and we can sit there and go, okay, what do we want to do? Do we want to empathize with some feedback? Do we want to try and resolve the customer's problem? So let's try and empathize with some feedback. And what you can see here is, rather than having to type out this information, it's going to give you a bit of a head start. It's going to give you a jump start and saying, you know, thanks for reaching out, understand the frustration, and you can actually start tweaking this. You can say, okay, well, I want it slightly longer or shorter, slightly friendly, professional. I can then update that and keep going. You can obviously keep that and edit it yourself. If you wanted to maybe not just do empathize, let's have a look, see if we can try and resolve the customer's problem. What Copilot will actually do is look at some of your knowledge base articles and actually give you some hints about something that we can do. Maybe it's about the specific process of giving us some advice. It might well be, if we've got the right knowledge base, about, you know, something they can try around resolving the issue themselves. So it could be something that would be useful, possibly more in terms of maybe the repairs and the niggles rather than complaints. But as you can see in this process, we've actually picked up 3 points in which we would potentially want to give some advice. Again, reading some of this detail, whether we'd want to give that kind of advice to our customers, well, I'll leave that up to you guys. But what the important part of this is that the Copilot will take the context of the email, will take the context of that case, and try and look at knowledge base articles to find a nice way of trying to resolve this issue. Really, really useful, as you can imagine. I'm going to crack on and discard that change and actually go back to the complaint. Now, this is really where we kind of move from Copilot assistance to more around agents. Okay, so I've actually linked in here my complaints agent. Now, this is using Copilot Studio. This is using a custom Copilot. It actually connects to a lot more of the data sources surrounding this housing association, and it will give us some more clarity on maybe some actions that we can do. So rather than just an assistance summarizing content, giving us maybe generating some emails, this will actually what's known as sort of dynamically chain actions, so that we can actually take some actions whilst having a conversation with Copilot. So this is more from an assistant perspective. We're actually more moving into agents. And if you guys are up to scratch with some of the Microsoft conversations at the moment, everything is going to be agentic. They are going towards this to make sure that not only are we going to, getting real good benefits from generative AI from an assistant's perspective, but actually we can start doing stuff, and agents can work slightly autonomously in the things that they can do to help us speed up on some of that process. So one of the things I'm going to actually have a look at is, Alison, I haven't actually had a look. I might just quickly jump onto Alison's contact details there. So you can see a little bit more information about Alison. We've got our customer alerts there. So there's some things around rent arrears. That's very interesting. There's a couple of applications that are outstanding. There's some cases. We've also got still some AI highlights. This is around that formal complaint, but also, it very much significant impact on families' comfort and health, but also the financial situation. So we know she's in arrears. We know there's a financial situation. I don't actually see any cases relating to that. So maybe I'll jump on this and say, okay, let's ask the Copilot any are there any unresolved, if I could spell, relating to Alison? Oh, okay. Right, what have we got? So upon review of Alison Dixon's account, there's 2 additional matters that I've mentioned. So repayment issue. So that's probably this issue around finance. And there's some ongoing dispute with a neighbour. So she really is in a bit of a pickle. That's really interesting. Is there a rent support? Are there any rent support cases? and rent support cases for Alison. Is there any rent support? So it didn't quite work out what I meant by that. So it tried to clarify what I meant. Is there a rent support? There are no open cases that relate to rent support. So that's really interesting. There's no open cases. But it's also then prompted me to say, would you like to search all cases? Okay, well, let's have a look at all cases. Okay, so there was a resolved rent support case back in 2023. So Jane Doe seems to know a little bit about Alison. Okay, maybe we should have a look at actually assigning Jane Doe for some rent support to have a look at what's going on. Now, this is where it gets more agentic, is the fact that actually we're saying, yes, let's assign Jane Doe to have a look at some rent support issues. And we're looking at finding some availability for Jane Doe to actually meet and have that initial meeting with Alison. And it's before we can actually book anything in, the dynamically chaining activities knows it needs a date and some availability. So let's try for Wednesday the 30th. Okay, great. So what's happened behind the scenes is I've not had to go away and ask rent support to find out some information about Alison. I've not had to go away and maybe try and book and schedule some things in. By dynamically chaining some of these activities, the agent is taking care of that. So I've got a rent support officer. I've got the date in which we can try and contact Alison. We've also created that case so we can actually go ahead and start processing that. So these are some of the areas where, although this complaint was around a faulty boiler, there's been a lot of mentions around finance, and obviously doing some more probing and using that agent, we're actually looking at trying to resolve some more of our issues to make sure that we're doing the best thing for Alison. So that's really, really important. But really, back onto what we're trying to resolve. Let's have a look at trying to resolve this. So one of the things that we could do is we know that we, once we get to, past the stage one side and we're looking at maybe some compensation, the compensation data doesn't actually sit within our dynamic solution, but we do have a Power BI report that relates to compensation and actually shows the teams responsible and the breakup of what the compensation is. And we've actually got some core details and breakdown of what those resolutions are in terms of compensation. Now we've connected our Copilot to that information and to that data. So based on the issues going on, based on the information we've had, why don't I ask Copilot to see if what is the best resolution option for this case? Okay, so looking at the data in the system and relating to this compensation figures, the next best options for resolution are the following. So it's actually given us an option based on the information that we provided and how things have been resolved previously. So lack of timely communication of £50, 25 inconvenience caused, and 100% service failure compensation. So I'm thinking, because it's the faulty boiler, it's been going on for a while, let's give her the big one to help her out. So I can actually go ahead, and again, from a dynamically chaining perspective, it knows that I'm looking for a resolution option. So it's automatically going to associate that resolution option to the case and keep going. So again, from an agentic perspective, we're looking at data that doesn't actually have to sit within Dynamics. As long as it's connected to Copilot, we can source that information, combine it with the information that we've got within Dynamics to show, okay, what's some of the best resolution options that we can come up with. So really, really useful. And then one of the final things that I know is one of the really difficult things is around sort of collating all of this information together. Say, for example, if this was escalated to the Ombudsman. So say, can you create a complaints report in this case? Okay, still wants me to clarify what I mean. I want a complaints report. And it says, do you want me to create a complaints report for the Ombudsman? Yes, please. And then it's actually asking me, because I've got a number of different templates that show a different levels of summary about what kind of report am I looking for. I've got a complaints report summary, which probably is more of a high level summary around some of the the top level elements of this complaint. But I also have a complaints report with interaction timeline. That's the kind of things that I need to be sending to the Ombudsman to say, this is the stuff that we've been doing in a timeline order. So I'm going to go ahead and push that on. So the report now will be recreated in this case. As long as the demo gods are with me. I'll just wait for that to load. And what we hopefully will see is I have the ability to download the report that actually gives me the summary, but also gives me the interaction timeline. Once this loads. Usual stuff, quickly. And let me see if I can blue Peter this in a minute.
So just Ollie asking one question.
Here we go. There we are.
Oh, sorry.
It's fine. I'll just download the report. So now we can download the report. What we should see now is, okay, so Crimson Housing Ombudsman report. So it's showing Alison Dickinson's, the complaint submission, a bit of a summary about what's gone on, and then that interaction log around the things that have happened, service team responses, the inspection, the evaluation, the replacement process, the apology, the follow-ups, and then outcomes and final remarks. So you can actually collate all that together, tweak it, change it, whatever's needed, save that against the record, and then send that out to the Ombudsman. So that's really some of the core details that I wanted to get through. I probably will stop it there because I think I'm scaring the demo gods. So I'll leave it at that point. But these are some of the elements that we're working on to make sure that AI is embedded in all of this process to allow us to get to resolutions quicker.
No, I think that's been really eye-opening. Ollie, thank you. That is it's quite impressive what AI can do. I don't know whether I didn't see any questions pop up, whether anybody's got any questions. I was just going to ask one. So one of the biggest challenges is where it's going to find information from other systems. So the repairs is quite a common one that might not be sitting if a customer, if a housing association's got Dynamics or not. If they've got Dynamics, but they've still got a repair system, they've got something else. That kind of custom co-pilot that you mentioned, would that be able to go and search those systems and provide the answer?
It will. There is some configuration to make sure that it's going to. You have to marshal the right data. You have to collate it and cure it in the right way to make sure that you can get the right information back. But yeah, I think that's one of the beauties of custom co-pilots. You kind of have the flexibility to, yes, look at the context in which the co-pilot is running, that case or a list of cases in Dynamics. But if you're in the custom co-pilot world, then the world is your oyster in terms of the systems and the data you can actually collate and get back. So really, really, really powerful when it comes to that sort of stuff.
Thank you. Has anyone else got any questions? Anything that they would like to ask? I'm not going to make everyone appreciate it is over dinner time. So hopefully you're having a cup of tea and a sandwich while listening. But if you do have any questions or anything that you would like to know a little bit more about, then please do drop me a line. Just before we sort of finish, I think it's clear to say that there are the art of the possible with AI is massive, and I think organisations are talking and thinking about AI. Hopefully today we've sort of honed it into one particular area, which is complaints. So I think if you are interested in wanting to know a little bit more, or you'd like us to show that demo to some of your colleagues, or actually, you know, invite us in to come and have a conversation where we can really start looking at some of these kind of areas of AI and what the art of the possible could be. Some of this might be kind of where we want to get to utopia. Some of it might be some quick wins that you'll be able to do now. But if there is anything, then please do reach out to me. We have got a bit of an art of the possible sort of workshop that we're able to come and deliver with your organisations. But if you're keen to have a look at the demo again or want us to come and do that, then please do let me know, and any questions that you might have. We have just put a poll up, so it'd be great to get some feedback as to whether that was useful. As I said, really wanted to kind of show some examples, because people have sort of fed back. We kind of hear the tools, but we want to see it work in real life, and hopefully some food for thought for you around complaints. So if you can fill that poll in, that'd be brilliant. Again, I think the next slide's got my contact details on, or Crimson's. Do get in touch with us, and we will let you go and enjoy the rest of what's left of lunch, hopefully. Thank you.